And then 10 years later, then just imagine, what if you bought 20 houses from 1980 to 1990, or 1990 to the year 2000, year 2000 to 2010, the year 2010. What if you bought any 10 year, pick any 10 years you want, and you buy 2 properties a year? You'd end up with lots of equity in it. And the book I'm releasing here this month is called Retire in 10 Years or Less, which is essentially an update of Creating Wealth, which came out in the year 1982. This has been a refreshed version and an updated version, which is a book you ought to go get. Retire in 10 Years or Less. Unlock your passive income machine and secure tax-free income for life. So real estate is absolutely the vehicle, and 75% of the money in the United States, guess where it's at? It's in the stock market. It's in 401ks. It's in mutual funds. It's like, let's put money away in a 401k for 40 years and let it grow and compound, and 40 years from now, then we can retire. This is a really bad idea, because things happen in the markets, go up and down. You have emergencies in your life where you have to pull money out of your 401k just to solve maybe your wife's cancer or your son's accident he had. You need to get it done in 10 years or less, and then you need a system that generates passive tax-free income. Now, most rich people, they do income totally different than ordinary people. Ordinary people, they have active income, and that's job income. They go to job, they come back, they put the money in the 401k, they hang on to their job, they do it for 40 years, hopefully they can retire. Well, they pile up a whole bunch of money, and then when they retire, guess what happens? All that money, that chunk of money they're pulling out of the market, or if they're leaving in the market, they're pulling out of money all the way until they die, and they just hope the money doesn't run out until they die. And that's the terror for most people who retire. They are terrified they're going to run out of money. Well, they could have retired 30 years earlier. And with the cash flow that flows in from their real estate properties, cash flow that's managed by people who manage it properly, professionally, and having cash flow, the streams of income that's tax-free. Now, how does it become tax-free? Well, rich people, how is it that Jeff Bezos pay and Warren Buffett and all these rich people, all these billionaires, why do they pay 6% in taxes where their secretary pays 14, 15, 20%? What is going on? You know how Bezos does it? He just borrows against his stock. And guess what? When you borrow money, the money flows into your life tax-free. You don't even have to report it. So he lives on tax-free money. And so he's got so much stock, he could just keep borrowing against it, and he secures it by life insurance, strangely enough. So if he dies, you know what happens? All the loans are paid off. It's crazy. And, most people don't know this stuff because they are swimming in this idea about how you retire with a 401k and you look at it for a long period of time. Your stockbroker, your advisor makes money whether the market goes up or down, but you don't. When the market goes down, you lose money. And if they buy anything at that time, they still make commissions and you don't. And, that's a vast majority of the way it works for most people. So you have to think radically differently when it comes to your retirement. And I wish one of my students, Ryan Lee, he's the co-author of this. He followed the exact plan in Creating Wealth 20 years ago. He retired, but he did it differently. And this book has some strategies, but he went it radically differently. He says, Robert, I followed your plan. I started buying these real estate deals, and I started being a manager. I was a mid-level manager in a corporation. I was making 6 figures a year. I was working my tail off. And then I decided this thing was Robert. I'm going to do Robert Allen's plan. And he started buying real estate and ended up with what most people happen is they start buying property and they try to manage it, and they don't have the time to manage it. And then a toilet breaks, or somebody, walks away without the rent, and therefore they have a second job. And that's the last thing you want. You want to buy property where you don't have to find it, you don't have to fix it up, you don't have to do anything with it. You buy property that's fully, totally repaired and ready to go, and somebody buys it and rents it for you. That's called a turnkey property person, a turnkey provider. And back when I wrote Creating Wealth, there were no turnkey providers. You had to do it all yourself. You had to find it, you had to fix it up, you had to manage it. And most people, either one of those things, what they did wrong. They couldn't find it. When they fix it up, they blew other expenses way out of the water. They had no idea what they're doing. They manage it to a tenant, and they got a soft heart. The tenant says, but I can't make my motorcycle payment this month. Please, can I? And therefore they end up losing. And many people who've done real estate my way, frankly, have lost a lot of money. And a lot of people have made millions. There's no doubt about it. I've created thousands of millionaires, but there are a lot of people who tried to do it and just couldn't handle it because they weren't doing it right. I used to say in my Creating Wealth, I said, buy a property that's within a 50-mile radius of your own home. Well, what if you live in Los Angeles? What if you live in San Francisco? What if you live in New York? What if you live in Boston? What if you live, most properties, you can't buy them enough for enough price to be able to rent them out, to be able to cover and have a positive cash flow. It's just almost impossible. So you need to buy them in the places in the country where the prices are low. And how can you do that if you're trying to do what I told you to do, which is invest 50 miles from your own home? You can't do it. So you need to buy in a place you can't visit very regularly. You have to buy property that the price is right, the cash flow is great, the opportunity for growth is fantastic. Anyway, I'm sharing the whole book here with you, but what I'm trying to say is there's lots of ways to create wealth, multiple streams of income. And my job is to help you. Now, Jay, you help people raise money for deals like that, don't you?
I do. Yep. Without ever asking for money, without ever applying for a mortgage. One thing that you talked about at the beginning of the show here was having that internal wealth.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. Because what I talk about all the time is one of the biggest mistakes I see people that are just starting out, either in real estate in general or to raise private money, is they got the wrong mindset. And so I tell people, they ask me all the time, they say, Jay, how do I start? I say, I tell you how you start. You start by owning the real estate between your ears.
There you go.
Is where you start.
Yeah.
And having the right outlet. Well, one of the biggest concepts, and I really believe you get credit for this, one of the biggest concepts that you introduced to the world was this idea of multiple streams of income. I mean, you're the guy who made multiple streams of income right there.
Yeah, there you go.
A household phrase.
I am that guy.
So what's the biggest or one of the biggest misconceptions people still have about building multiple streams of income?
That you got to focus, that you got to, focus on one thing and make it work. That if you have too many things going on, too many balls in the air, that man who chases two rabbits loses both. That's the old phrase. And so they don't want to chase two rabbits. I don't want you to chase two rabbits. I want you to chase 5 or 6, 10 rabbits. I want you to chase lots of them because you need multiple streams of income, and that income needs to be passive. And so what multiple streams of income this book talks about is 10 ways of making multiple streams of income. And one of my favorite ways, frankly, obviously real estate is right up there, big time. But one of my favorite ways is information marketing, which is what you're doing, Jay. What's a lot of very famous people, they have a book, and this is a book that came out on my birthday this year, #1 bestseller, How You Can Become a Best-Selling Author in Only 30 Minutes a Day. Now, what I just shared with you was how you can take whatever's in your head and your heart, you can turn it into a book. Why do that? You say, well, because if you have a business, you want to double your business, you need a book. If you're a real estate investor, you need a book. You say, well, Robert, how do I write a book? Well, that book I just showed you is how you do it. But why would you write a book? Because it gives you credibility. And when you hand your book to an investor who you want to borrow money for, borrow money from, and Jay's going to help you how to find people like that. But when you have a book, you can say, well, let me give you a copy of my book. It shares the system of how I make money in real estate. And therefore, you talk about your system, how you learned it, how you improved it, how you made it work, and then you give it to your investor. Or even you could give it to a seller who you want to buy a property from. They could realize that you're trying to work a win-win proper opportunity with that seller. And the buyer is the person who partners with you. You need credibility, and a book gives you credibility faster than anything I have ever seen. I learned that myself when I wrote Nothing Down in 1980, and people would come up to me and I'd say, here's my book. And then immediately they would look at me differently. And this is what you guys really ought to understand. When you give somebody a copy of your book, you autograph it to them, they never throw it away. But if you give them your business card, that business card will go in the garbage can within hours, because they won't remember how they met you at the conference, and they can't, well, what was this guy? I forgot. You chuck it. I chucked one today. I got a card. It's gone because I can't remember how that person. So the bottom line is you need multiple streams of income. And obviously the three main chapters in this book are about real estate. It has to form a major portion of your wealth, period, end of story. If your wealth is in the stock market, hoping that it'll eventually keep going up for long periods of time, it probably will. But will that be inflation protected like real estate is? No. Will you, when you sell any of it, do you have any tax possibilities for saving taxes from all the stocks you sell? No, but real estate, you can trade it into another bigger property tax-free. There's all kinds of ways that the government has made real estate the wealth creation tool of all time. So yeah, you need that. And then obviously the other option, the opportunity that I'm sharing with you is, if you're in business, any kind of business, you want to know what the best business is? It's the information business. Example, one of my students, this is maybe 20 years ago, he's a personal trainer and he's going around training with people in their houses, working out $100 an hour, $200 an hour. And I said, you're selling the wrong thing. Don't sell your time. That's active income. You need passive income. He said, how do I do that? He said, what's the biggest problem that your clients have? And they says, well, they're always canceling because they got back pain. And I said, then write a book about that. And so he was making $20,000 a year as a personal trainer. And a couple of years later, he's making $200,000 a month, because he has unlimited back pain in the world where he has limited time. And so you have to be in the kind of business where it's digitally delivered. The cost of delivering information is almost zero. And the profit margins are massive. Right, Jay?
Absolutely. And one thing you just shared about having your own book is so true. I didn't realize the power of having your own book until I wrote one of my books, which is called Where to Get the Money Now. And I remember like it was yesterday, I met this guy at the local pharmacy at 7 o'clock at night. They had a little clinic going on how to lose weight. And I wanted to lose some weight. And this guy I met, he needed to lose a lot more weight than I did. And so they were selling these female hormone drops at this little thing. And you put these female hormone drops underneath your tongue, and in 30 days, you lose 30 pounds and you eat all the Cheetos you want. I said, sign me up. So I got my female hormone drops, and this guy was named Al. I never met Al before in my life, but I went out, this was back when you had CDs. We don't have CDs anymore. And I gave him a little CD called Stress-Free Investing. I said, I bet this book this CD will really be interesting to you. I said, give me a call if you like it. He called me up and we got together in my office that following Monday and we sat down, And I had no idea what in the world this guy did for a living. I said, Al, what do you do? Come to find out, he had a problem. He had over $1 million in the bank and he didn't know what to do with it. He was in multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do with his money. Of course, that's my ethical responsibility to relieve him of that problem. And so we sat down and we visited about my private lending opportunity. And right before we sat down, I gave him my book, just like you said. Gave him my book. So I said, let me give you a copy of my book. Let me autograph it for you. And by the end of that conversation, he became my next, and I just met this guy a week earlier. He became my next $650,000 private lender. He didn't give me the whole $1 million, but he gave me $650,000. And about a week after that, after we did our first deal, I said, Al, I've just got to know, why did you decide to become my private lender? He said, well, first of all, what you offer in interest rate and how you secure the note, all that got my interest. It was important. He said, but do you know what sealed the deal? I said, no. He said, your book sealed the deal and gave me the confidence in your credibility.
Exactly.
That you knew what you're talking about.
He might not have known really who you are, but as soon as you gave him that book, instantly your credibility went way up, because in our society, an author is respected immediately. When you're an author, if you can say you're an author, if you can say you're a best-selling author, they look at you immediately gives an immediate credibility, and they don't check your credibility. They don't check the letters after your name. They don't how long did you go to college, how long you been in business. You give them your book, it's instant credibility. And so, one of my little side things is I teach people how to write books, and it's just so gratifying because everybody wants to write a book. And here's the mistake they make. Matter of fact, in the first chapter of this, I talk about 12 stupid mistakes that beginner authors make. And then I have this little summit I call the authorsummits.com, where I spend a couple of days teaching them. But the first mistake they make, they tell their story as if people really cared. Nobody cares about your story.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Unless telling your story and the system you pulled out of your own life, and you created a system to make their story better, then they'll read your story. But I open up any book, I can tell you whether it'll be a bestseller, or at least a seller, or whether it will never sell. And I'll tell you the one secret word, the worst word I read: I, me, my, mine. And the best word I read: you, your, or ours. And if there's lots of yous in that first chapter, it means I'm talking to you. I'm changing your life. I want you to be better. I want you to have more money. I want your life. And I have a story, but I'm here to teach you what I learned from my story so your story can be better. And if you have lots of yous, then they know you're talking to them, because, what's the famous FM station, WIIFM?
Yes.
What's in it for me? And if you say what's in it for me, like me, they don't care. Even your family, if you write a book like that, even your family won't read it, because they know you, right? They know most of that stuff is not true. So
Bob, you were speaking on stage at one of the family mastermind conferences, and you said something that I've never forgotten. I'll never forget it, and I've used it ever since. I had already published a couple of books that I had written. But one thing you said on stage is, you said, look, when you've got your own book, I'm going to teach you how to change how you introduce yourself to people.
Yeah.
And you said from that stage, you said, when somebody asks you, what do you do? And you've got your own book, you simply say, well, I'm an author, and shut up.
Yeah.
And now they want to know, well, what do you write about? So now they're asking you to talk about your stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful. Well, this ties in perfectly, Bob. I mean, you've taught thousands and thousands of people. And what you've done, really, you have helped ordinary people achieve extraordinary success. You've been teaching everyday people how to change their financial lives for over 50 years. So here's the question. You've got a lot of experience in seeing people that make it and people that don't make it. What do you see as one or two of the biggest differences between people who succeed with your system and the ones that don't?
Yeah, they're sitting in the same seminar right next to each other, and one of them takes what I tell them to do. They go out and do it. They make a fortune. That person sitting right next to them in the same, here's the exact same things, same system, same ideas, and they don't do anything.